Okay, in 7.3, we're going to learn how to show that two triangles are similar using the AA similarity posture. Um, if you recall, uh, we went through several units to learn how to prove congruency. So, in other words, one triangle is congruent to another triangle by certain rules. And there's SAS and SSS and so on and so forth. Remember, any combination of three works except that one bad word. We cannot use the bad word, right? So similarities is very similar, and in this unit, it's about angle and angle. And so here's the angle similarity postulate. It says that if two angles of one triangle are congruent to two angles of another triangle, then the two triangles are congruent. In other words, in this example, this angle here, one tick mark, one tick mark. That tells me these two are congruent. This one, two tick marks, two tick marks. So I have two sets of angles that are congruent. Then I'm saying that these two triangles are similar. And if you look at the shape, they're exactly the same shape, except that one is bigger, one is smaller, right? It's like father and son, mother and daughter. So that's what it is. And here are the symbols. If K is congruent to angle Y, angle J is congruent to angle X. Two sets of congruent angles, I have one set of similar triangles. Almost slipped there. Here's an example. Determine whether the triangles are similar. If they're similar, write a similarity statement. So the first one says these two angles, because both of them are congruent. So they're congruent because they're right angles, right? So that's one set. That's my first set. Now the second set are not congruent. Look here. This is 61. This is 29. They're not congruent. However, you have to find out what's happening with the third angle so that you have all the information. And since we know, in order to find F, we know angle F plus 61 degrees plus 90 degrees is 180, right? And if I add 61 to 90, I have 151. On the right hand side, I still have 180. Now if I subtract 180 from both sides, I will end up with 29 degrees. So over here, I just calculated that I've got 29 degrees. And look what happens. I've got a second set of congruent angles. So angle F and angle J both measures 29 degrees. Therefore, they're congruent. And by AA similarity postulate, triangle FGH should be similar to triangle JLK. Okay, that's how we use the similarity statement. Now let's look at another example. Let's go up. Here's an example. Are you given enough information to determine the triangles are similar? So we have to explain our reasoning. So let's look at this diagram here. I've got one set of angles that are congruent. If they're similar, I have to find another set. However, I don't really have anything that tells me that. Let me see if I can analyze it and figure out, is there a way to see if there are any other things that can help me. Okay, so let's redraw the diagram and separate out this small triangle on the top. So this doesn't look, let me see if I can try. There we go, that's better. And then I'm going to redraw the big triangle at the bottom, the big triangle, the whole big triangle. Getting close, but not exactly. Let me get rid of this. Let me get rid of this. Okay. I'm really making a mess here, aren't I? There we go, much better. So we have two triangles. I cut off the top and then I took the original big one. So if I have to label this one is RUV. That's my big one. And this small one is RST. And we already know that this is 48, this is 48. So both of these are 48 degrees. So we know RST and R angle RUV are congruent because they both measure 48 degrees. Also, if you think about it, over here, both triangles overlap. So I have an angle R here, I have the same angle R here as well, right? If I put this small one over on top, I would have my original. So angle R and angle R are congruent because, remember this name? Reflexive property. Its reflexive property is like a mirror. So what you see is what you get in the mirror, right? So that's exactly what it is. That's reflexive property of congruence. And therefore, I do have my first set, I have my second set of angles that are congruent. I can prove that these two triangles are similar. So the thing to keep in mind here is when you have a small triangle put on top of a big triangle that shares the same angle, even though that information is given, you can already see that it's exactly the same angle. So don't be afraid to use what you already know and then keep going with to solve your problems. Okay, so you will see in your exams, you will see examples with overlapping angles. So make sure you familiarize yourself with that kind of problems. Let's look at this one. This one is asking us to find x. X is right here. So we know that from this one, we know angle B has to be congruent to angle E, right? Because they're both 90 degrees. E is here. And angle ACB is congruent to angle DCE. So that's given. Therefore, we know these two triangles are similar. They're not congruent, they're similar. So angle ABC is similar to angle DEC. Again, remember that sequence really matter. So angle A corresponds to angle D right here. Angle B and E both are 90 degree angles. And then finally this C and this C, ACB and DCE are congruent. That's given. Now also recall from the last unit, when you have a set of similar triangles, all the sides are proportional. So if we say DE, which is right here, over AB should equal EC over BC. Right? We chose EC over BC because this information is given. You can also use DC over AC, but we don't know these two. You have to calculate it. So we don't need that. It's much easier to do it this way. So now we just substitute x over 25 equals 28 over 40. And you can use your calculator to cross multiply. So if you cross multiply, you would have 40x. This way you have 25 times 28. Then you should have 40x equals 700. and x equals 17.5 if you divide both sides by 40. So that's a new concept. Again, use AA find similarity statements first. Once you find similar triangles, use what we learned in the last unit and set up a proportion and solve for x. That's how you do it. Finish the checkpoints and I'll talk to you in class. Bye guys.